Hello! So today I'm going to be doing something a little different, a lot different than normal. But really, what is normal on this channel other than a word we throw around in the wind? See? So hopefully at some point by now some form of graphics have appeared on the screen somewhere. And if you liked them and were interested in using them, then you have come to the right place. All the links to download all the files and information on how to use them and blah 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 will all be down below. They are entirely free. All that I ask is that you just link this video, give some credit to what credit is due. Hi. And if you'd like a little bit more information on how to actually use them, you can skip to this time, just in case you don't feel like listening to me, because that I understand. Otherwise, I'm going to be walking you through this yellow waffle like walkthrough of me making stuff. Yay! I do use After Effects to do most of my graphics, so if you don't have that, you're warned. And I'm not going to go into full detail on how I do every single thing in this video anyway. If you do like these, we can talk. But for right now, it's just sort of a general gist. But I figured I'd just walk you through it because isn't there some saying about how you can like give a man a glass of milk and he'll like drink for a day? Or you can give a man a cow, he'll drink as long as the cow lives. Is that just a Midwest thing that I made up? Well, so to start, the first thing that you're gonna do is actually need some assets. If you're good at drawing or graphic design or any of those things, you could ideally just create your own. But if you're like myself and everything you draw looks like you drew it with a broken hand, then it is time to turn to your friend at the internet. One way to find these is straight up just a Google search. Just search for words like Instagram logo vector or Snapchat logo graphic. Logo, vector, graphic, these are your keywords. Just when you're doing this, make sure that you are only choosing images that you legally can use or modify or adjust. I'm not trying to send you to jail. The quickest way to do this on Google is to actually just do an advanced search and set the images to only show work that you can use. Then this way you're also not tempted with all the attractive images that you can't use. My preferred way of finding things is actually through Pinterest, just because I feel it's easier to find slightly more attractive stuff. But nothing's wrong with Google. But again, just make sure that the work is legal. So once you have all your pieces, you can now begin animating them. In my case, I made these myself in Photoshop real quick. So I, for one, use After Effects for all my animating needs. And if you are as well, open that and import all your assets off your hard drive that has quickly become a disaster. If you are importing files out of Photoshop, make sure that you import them as a composition with editable layer styles. This will keep all your layers you want to individually animate separate. As for the length of the timeline, I'm just making mine about 5 seconds because that seemed sane. So for this specific animation, I have the Twitter logo separate from the circle behind it. If you don't plan on individually animating these separately, parenting is a lovely idea for your future. Parenting will link one asset to another, making it so that anything you do to this asset will also happen to this one. If you plan on animating them separately, then just skip this step. So if you found, say, just this Instagram logo, and now you're here and you're thinking to yourself, you too want to be in the club and have a circle behind your logo. One way to quickly do this is to just make a shape layer. Go to your toolbar at the top, grab the ellipse tool, and create yourself a handy dandy little circle. At the top here, you can change the fill color, add a stroke, do all the things. So while I already have my circle of life, I do want to add a strip of color behind this just to make my text that will eventually go here easier to read. And to do so, I'm going to do the same process I just showed in making a circle, just with a rectangle. Magical. So dealing with the old Twitter, before starting anything, you do want to make sure the anchor points are in ideal locations. Hit Y or just move your mouse over here. And for what I plan on doing, I want the anchor points to be in the center of the logo and the circle. This is already pretty much done for both of these, but for the bar, I actually want it to slide out from the left, so I'm going to move the anchor point here. Now all these elements are going to animate on and off, but for the majority of the time this is pretty much the placement that I want these layers to be in. So now with all 3 layers selected, I'm keyframing their scale, rotation, and position at about 2 seconds in, although the timing really doesn't matter at this point. I do this because later when you want everything to be back in this position, you already have the keyframes and you don't have to redo them. So the first thing that I'm going to do is animate this banner portion. I'm actually going to have all 3 of these layers doing different things, so I am no longer going to have them parented. So after separating it, I'm going to bring up its scale. Then by clicking on this little chain here, I'm going to unlink its horizontal and vertical scales. So somewhere near the beginning of your timeline, I'm going to make a keyframe with the horizontal scale set to 0. So now the banner behind it grows out to the right. Hoo-hoo. I'm also just going to go ahead and easy ease these suckers and then time the keyframe so it animates at an appropriate speed. Next, for the Twitter logo and circle, I'm going to have these pop on. So again, pulling up its scale, at the beginning of the timeline, I'm going to keyframe this at 0. So it comes on at you. Bloop, bloop. But because I want this to feel like it's actually popping, I'm going to go a few frames ahead of where it ends and make the scale slightly larger than the ending keyframe. Then just easy ease everything. Now lastly, I'm gonna make this Twitter logo sort of rock back and forth, just to give a little bit of life, a little bit of Twitter to this bird. And I'm gonna do this by messing with its rotation. So starting just before the logo is fully animated in, I'm shifting the previously made rotation keyframe over to start everything. Then jumping ahead like 10 frames, although I ended up changing the spacing later, I'm changing the rotation to 6. Now another 10 frames down the road, I'm changing the rotation to -6. So now you can see the bird rocks back and forth. Then I just went ahead and copy and pasted this down the rest of the timeline and threw on another easy ease. So classy. Now we have everything animating on, we just need to deal with it animating off the screen. So for these specifically, I'm just gonna reverse how they came on. So starting with the banner, I'm going to copy and paste its last keyframe, or just make a keyframe with the scale at 100. Then a few frames later, when I want it to be off, I'm setting its horizontal scale to 0 again. So now it disappears from the right. For the Twitter logo and circle, I'm again having it pop, then disappear, so I'm keeping it at the same size. Down the timeline, scaling it just a little bit too large, making a keyframe, then a couple frames later, scaling it back to 0. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and adjust everything, make sure everything is timed appropriately and doesn't look completely terrible. And that is the gist. For exporting, there are many ways you can do this, but I am simply exporting it through the render queue initially. I do typically take everything back into Media Exporter and change it with different settings, but that is for another day. In After Effects, make sure you set the settings to lossless with alpha so that you don't have a background exported. Also just make sure you know where you're exporting your file because no one likes a lost file. And that's it. So now you have your animations, but if you're not entirely sure of what to do with them, don't worry. When you open the folder you downloaded, you will find 6 MOV files. An Instagram left, Instagram right, Snapchat left, Snapchat right, Twitter left, and Twitter right. Full of surprises. So open whatever sort of editing software you use. I personally use Premiere Pro, but it really does not matter what you're using. So go ahead and import your files. From here, pick whatever little file you need. I personally only have an Instagram, so let's take that and flop it into your timeline. I made these images larger so that you can scale them to however big or small you want. And there we go. Once you're happy with your placement, in your editing software, create a text layer. Write in your handle, choose your font, your color, whatever you like, and just overlay this on top of the banner. And ta-da! From here, have the text come in however you like. You can have it fade on, right on, just pop up, whatever. But let's say you have an Instagram and a Snapchat. Again, just flop the Snapchat video on top and fool around with its placements. Obviously, you can change the color of your text or add a stroke to fulfill your reading needs. And this is the reason why I created a left and a right version of everything, is so that if you want the animations coming in from both sides of the screen, you now have options. So let's say you're a social butterfly. So you have an Instagram, a Snapchat, and a Twitter, and want all 3 of these on the screen. With these, you can literally place them wherever and however you want. This way you can have one coming in from the right, 2 from the left, all of them on the right, all of them on the left. You can do whatever. But since you have animations coming in from both sides, it kind of gives you more freedom to fiddle around with your animations. And that is everything. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that this was actually interesting or at least useful. Let me know if you guys would like more things like this, if you want just the downloadable version, if you like listening to me pratter on about how I make these things. Just tell me your thoughts, tell me your feelings. How's your day? How's your mom? Laura said hi. But yeah, that's everything for this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We have a whole comments section for it. But until then, go organize your hard drive, get the dishes out of your room, and have a nice day. Bye, thanks for watching.